Which supposedly fun thing will you never do again? Wave pools. When I was maybe 10, I was in a wave pool that was split with swimmers in the shallow end and inner tubes in the deep end. I got pulled towards the deep end and ended up stuck in the inner tubes section. I was underwater and all I could see above me were inner tubes pushed tight together without a gap of light. I pushed my way through and clambered, gasping for air, onto a double tube with a couple of teenagers who yelled at me to get my own tube and pushed me back in the water. I distinctly remember thinking I was going to die. Fortunately, a pair of adults saw me and pulled me out of the water and brought me back to my parents, who were in full panic mode. Oh, it was dangerous. I think water parks suck. Also, not to mention about some people peeing in them, of course, but people rarely think about the myriad of skin conditions, open sores and just filth people have on them when they get in. I won't go into public pools and water parks because I just think about all the shit floating around in the water. Cave exploring. Fascinating, but way too dangerous. In a place that it would be very difficult to rescue you if seriously injured. I once read an article about an unfortunate individual who went cave diving, and wound up trapped upside down in a tube-like formation, and nobody could get him out. I think his body is still in there. My dad told me a story about when he was a kid and would take turns diving off a bridge into water with his friends, a relatively small bridge in a country area, diving into a river. One time a kid dove off and didn't come back up. They found his body stuck in a tube. There was some kind of old tubing pointing up at the bottom of the river and he dove straight down and landed perfectly in it and got stuck. Probably the worst way to die I've ever heard of. Cramped spaces and water are terrifying. I think it's better underwater than in a cave though. As crazy as it is, the water death at least only takes a few minutes. There's apparently a huge set of catacombs under Moscow that people sometimes explore and the youth sometimes use it to party in. I read a story a long time ago where they found a girl's skeleton while in it, but dressed in modern clothes. She was with a group of other teenagers but got separated, wandered around in the dark for a few days until she died. Think about that, pitch black, no idea what to do, but it's no like drowning where you've got to deal with it for 5 minutes or so. That's a way to die that probably takes about 3 days. I think it's even worse if you get stuck somewhere and can't move. Those tall-ass water slides with straight down drops. Felt like my back was getting ripped open every time I went over a seam in the plastic. Riding a freight train. Although, it was fun. There's nothing like that feeling of freedom when the train left the station and gathered speed heading out into the desert. Seeing the last of the city disappear behind us was absolutely exhilarating. And it's the best way to see the country. Often, the train itself was the only trace of civilization we could see. Nothing but dry sagebrush stretching to either horizon. But it's a dangerous, dirty, noisy, windy, illegal, and unreliable form of transportation. I'm glad I did it once, but I have zero desire to do it ever again. My ex-husband did this. He called me one night and said he wouldn't be home for dinner. He had hopped on a train that was rolling through his buddy's property while they were target shooting. Asshole rode the train for 3 hours just to go 2 towns over, then on his way back he jumped off at the wrong spot and wound up in the middle of a swamp. He finally made it home and a few days later he came down with flu-like symptoms and a crazy disc-like shaped spots all over his torso. Turns out he caught Lyme disease. He totally deserved it. Is that why he's your ex? Honestly, no. He did a lot of stupid stuff. That was just another day in the life. Skydiving, not that it wasn't fun, I enjoyed it. But it was far, far too expensive for me to ever do again. I'm glad I did it once, but I also don't see the need to do it again. I really enjoyed it, I'll remember it forever, but it would be pointless to do again in my opinion. Raise puppies. Long story short, we adopted a dog that turned out to be pregnant. My wife and I had little choice but to let her whelp in our big apartment. She had 7 little pups. They were all really cute. Take how cute one puppy is and multiply it by 7. The math really does work that way. However, they were 1. Noisy. 2. Destructive. 3. Smelly. 4. Expensive, food and vet bills. We didn't volunteer to do this the first time, but we'd definitely never volunteer to do it again. P.S. All the pups found homes and as far as I know, are all doing really well. Mom still lives with us. Smile. Wow. We got our beagle at 12 weeks and I told my husband I never want a small puppy again. All the pooping and peeing everywhere, constant crying if I step out of sight. Nope. Love this one to death and so glad we have her, but I'll take an older dog next time. A night of heavy drinking in Tijuana. My friend danced with the wrong gal and got his jaw broke on the dance floor. I immediately showered the puncher guy with Pacifico beer. He had about 20 friends and I was very lucky to walk away only a little punched up. God, I was stupid at 19. One time we lost a friend over there in the chaos. He hunkered down with some nice street people who shared their crack with him. Picked him up at the border the next afternoon. You know, fun. Snorkeling in very deep and cold water. Gave me a panic attack. I got stung by a Portuguese jellyfish, snorkeling off the coast of Mexico. I haven't even been in the ocean since. There are no jellyfish in the resort swimming pool. Higher piss content, though. Bouncy castle. Tried one out when I was 10 years old, and some fat kid tried to do a flip, came down on my leg and almost broke it. No more bouncy castles. Rent one as an adult. They aren't all that expensive to rent depending on what you get, and if you get a bunch of half-drunk adults in it you can break your leg in a much more fun setting. Jet skiing 2 miles out in choppy seawater on my own, boat left me 1 mile behind. Saw a shark, felt seasick, has sore eyes from sea salt. Swim in the Dead Sea. So many microscopic cuts on my body, it felt like floating in hand sanitizer. Plus the area emitted a strong smell of sulfur. Kind of a been there, done that experience. My stepsister has eczema and no one thought of that when we went to Salt Lake City and went to swim in the lake. She made it a few steps in before she had to stop and leave and was crying in pain, it was burning so bad. Make love with strangers without a condom. Childbirth. I didn't learn my lesson and I'm pregnant for the second time. Water parks. I've read enough about brain-eating amoebas. You're more likely to die from a car accident on the way to the park than from a brain-eating amoeba. If you drive there safely, you're still more likely to die walking across the parking lot to the entrance of the park. As terrifying as it sounds, brain-eating amoebas are exceedingly rare. Yeah, and aren't they usually in fresh water, like lakes? Not saying that water parks are necessarily on point with the chlorine, but I suspect there's usually enough in there to prevent incidents. I had a friend get an amoeba in her eye from a lake. Luckily, it just ate her cornea, not her brain. The multi-day summer music festival. Get ready for 1. Sticky swamp-ass weather. 2. Maybe 5 bands out of the 40 that you actually want to see. 3. Pre-industrial bathroom and hygiene standards. 4. A lot of people who probably spend everything they have on these tickets, and that lack of critical thinking shows in their behavior. 5. It's mostly just standing around. Ropes courses. I've always had a fear of heights, but wanted to challenge myself and I figured as long as the harness was secure, I shouldn't get too scared. I ended up shaking uncontrollably like 10 minutes in, passing out, and then vomiting on the instructor upon awakening. It was one of the most humiliating experiences ever. Stand at the very front of the concert. Usually the EQ isn't very good up there, you're smushed in, no room to dance, and the list goes on. The only plus is you reach your hand out to touch a band member. Trampolining. Went to a trampoline warehouse, paid for an hour, bounced across 3 trampolines and broke my ankle. To make it worse, the workers didn't know how to get me off the trampolines. Well, we can't just make everyone stop jumping, can you just sort of crawl off? The club. Way too expensive, too loud to talk to people, shitty music, blinding lights, the culture around it is sketchy, I hate dancing, shitty music, again, usually rude bouncers/bartenders, anxiety, I wanna go home. Massage. I just found it really stressful. I didn't like having a complete stranger touch me. My ex-wife. Nicotine and alcohol. I'm about 1 week nicotine-free and 1 month alcohol-free. Drinking. I'm never drinking again. Fast forward to next week and let's get drunk. Rinse and repeat. Amusement parks. There's a line for everything, and the rides aren't really fun in the first place. Do you have anything that you will never repeat again? Leave a comment. And subscribe to this channel if you wanna see more same videos.